Hello and welcome. We are in the course on the fundamentals of faith according to Judaism, according to the Torah of Israel. In this course, we will study various topics in faith. You are also invited to send questions on these topics if you want to clarify them further. I will do my best to answer and get back to you. So the first topic we will deal with this time is, what is faith? Before we really dive in, with your permission, I'll say a few words about myself. My name is Boaz Malat. I am a rabbi. I am a member of the Sanhedrin organization. I work at the Torah HaMedina Beit Midrash, and I teach Judaism in various settings. I run a website called Mikvaot Ashurenu in Hebrew. Its address in English is here, mikvaot.com. There are hundreds or maybe even thousands of articles here on various topics in Judaism. I am married, a father of 8 children, already a grandfather to grandchildren, and I live in Geva Binyamin, a settlement near Jerusalem. Let's begin. So the first thing I want to clarify with you to learn together, what is the definition of faith? What is faith? This topic is very important to understand because there is a lot of confusion here. Many people think that faith is a feeling, that is the acceptance of something that cannot be proven. All sorts of things like that. So from the Jewish perspective, faith is a worldview, the consciousness that our outlook on life, according to which we conduct our practical everyday lives. When you ask a person, what do you believe in, you're really asking them, what are your values? What is the outlook that you carry with you in your life, for which you invest your energy and your resources? So essentially, faith is the idea that actually guides the way we live our life. It's not a hobby. It's not a pastime. Faith can be proven, it can be examined, it can be studied, and it is extremely significant. Do all people manage their lives this way? Because we've just defined that faith is how we manage our lives. Generally, yes, 7 people who perhaps live less principled lives still have the principles by which they conduct their practical lives. Only that people who have examined their faith, their worldview, truly make sure that their practical lives are conducted according to it. And there are people who basically mainly live their lives by their gut instincts, by various personal desires, and they carefully arrange their faith so that it really doesn't interfere with getting what they truly feel like achieving. So what essentially is the difference between the righteous and the wicked? The former, namely the righteous, have examined the correct and upright worldview, and they strive to conduct their lives according to it. In contrast, the latter basically build their own values and ideologies according to their desires and cravings. I'll give an example. For instance, a person who, God forbid, was in a car accident, not that it should happen to you or to us. And when he contacted the insurance company, he found out that he did not meet the terms of the policy. Maybe his age wasn't within the conditions. He drove not according to the traffic rules, I don't know. He failed to meet one of the clauses of the policy. So someone who is righteous, who conducts his life according to values, and among his values is a prohibition against theft, will either not make a claim against them, or he will approach them, tell them the truth, and if the insurance company compensates him, then so be it. A person who lives his life by his gut, on the other hand, might say something like, insurance companies are thieves. They steal from everyone all the time. Therefore, it's a mitzvah to steal from them. He creates an ideology and invents a value out of taking money that isn't rightfully his from the insurance company, using one excuse or another. We can find this in the world, in life, in all kinds of situations. People who tell themselves a story to justify the way they feel like living their lives. Actually, in the words of the sages, they call these 2 types. One type is the righteous, whose hearts are in their control, and the other type is the wicked, who are controlled by their hearts. In other words, who is the master, who manages, who is in control? So the righteous, whose hearts are in their control, means that when their heart desires various things, they examine those desires, refine them, and make sure they are correct and aligned with the faith they believe in. And the wicked, who are controlled by their hearts, conduct themselves from a place of the heart without any examination. No refinement, no checking whether what arises within them is right, honest, and proper. He is true, honest, and connected. That's it. And here I want to talk about a point that, in my view, is very, very fundamental. It's essential to understand it well. And if someone disagrees or doesn't understand, then this issue needs to be clarified. Because in my opinion, this is one of the most critical mistakes in today's dominant culture in the world, at least in the Western world. Western culture today advocates for freedom of religion. How can it advocate for freedom of religion? Because it portrays religion as a hobby, like someone who goes to play soccer or goes to, I don't know, goes for a run, plays tennis. So there's one person who goes to church, another who goes to a mosque, someone who goes to their house of worship, who hits like that's his hobby, and therefore everyone can have their own hobby in the world. That's how Western society sees it. Also, we hear such voices here among us, influenced by this. People often quote the saying, each person shall live by his own faith. It sounds like a verse from the Bible, but there is no such verse in the Bible. There is a similar verse in the Bible, but it is very different from that. It says, the righteous shall live by his faith. The righteous shall live by his faith means that the righteous person, as we said earlier, lives according to his faith. He conducts his life with his faith. His awareness that there is a master of the world who wants us to live moral lives is what guides his life. In contrast, when people say each person shall live by his own faith, they are basically saying that everyone should do whatever they feel like doing. And that's terrible and frightening. So this thing can actually bring a great disaster upon the world, because in the name of freedom of religion, no one intervenes, no one checks. There are places where people are being preached to with beliefs that are extremely dangerous to the world, and the world remains silent about it because it's under the label of a house of worship, a religious place. So freedom of religion is not real, it's not correct. It contradicts the Torah, it contradicts the 7 Noahide laws. Of the 7 Noahide laws is the prohibition of idolatry. What does the prohibition of idolatry mean? It means recognizing that if people have a belief that is incorrect, that is not upright, it will be reflected in their practical lives, and it is harmful and destructive to the world. It's not just one of the 7 Noahide laws, it's also one of the 10 commandments in the Torah of Moses at Mount Sinai. There is a prohibition against people inventing a religion for themselves. The prohibition of idolatry is not just about worshipping the sun, the moon, or various things that existed in the ancient world and are not so present today. Even someone who invents a new religion is violating the prohibition of idolatry, is fabricating a religion for himself. This prohibition is without a doubt one of the most severe prohibitions. It is the prohibition that appears the most times in the Torah. This is the only prohibition where, even if a prophet comes on, we know he is a true prophet, that he has brought us genuine prophecies from God. But if this prophet comes and tells us to worship idolatry, we know the prophet has spoken falsely, and we must put this prophet to death, because it is extremely dangerous for the world. So the prohibition of idolatry in its modern form is what we mentioned: freedom of religion. Each person shall live by his own faith. We expect not to. I'm not saying now that we should start fighting everyone who thinks differently, but we believe that it is a very significant foundation to clarify our faith, to understand. We will learn this here, that faith is the strongest force in human life in the world. The strongest force to ignore it, to neglect it, not to pay attention to it, is a tragic mistake, a terrible mistake. We must study faith and do our best to teach it to others so that the world will live a proper life. so that the world will live according to the correct values, according to the values of truth. It turns out that what is perceived in the world in Western society as openness, as progressive, we accept everyone, is actually a very, very severe prohibition in the Torah. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. Here I'm touching on a topic that I believe in a later episode we'll delve into more deeply, but just to get a taste, to connect to the subject, what is really the meaning of belief in one God. Belief in one God, monotheism, is first and foremost the recognition that there is order in the world. Any other perspective that sees a world with a multitude of gods inevitably means there are different forces. That what is the balance of power between them? Which one will take over? Which one will prevail? If there are good forces and bad forces, maybe the bad forces will prevail. And in general, this means that there is chaos in reality, because there are all kinds of ruling forces, and you're claiming that none of them is above the others. The belief that there is one God in the world means that there is a single entity that arranged the entire world, that created. There is also one absolute system of values, which are the values of God, this one who created the world. So anyone who looks at the world and sees that there is order in the world, sees this order in all kinds of timings and special events and meetings that happen in their life. You think about a certain topic, and then you hear someone talking about that very topic. You think about someone, and just then they get in touch with you. You experience all kinds of things. I'm sure everyone is familiar with this in their own lives, that show us through the events of life just how much order there is in this world. But also, if we look at it from another angle, if we look at the celestial bodies, we can see how much order there is in them, how much wisdom and precision, so that this world can exist. If the Earth were to get just a little bit closer to the sun than it is now, we would all burn up. If it moves just a little farther away, we will freeze. It has maintained this orbit for thousands of years or millions of years, depending on what you want to say, and it keeps to this path, never straying from it. We, as humans, with wisdom and technology, send satellites into space to orbit the Earth. How long do these satellites manage to stay in orbit without drifting inward or outward? Only a few years, but here, for an immense number of years, everything remains perfectly suspended, not falling inward. We see this, and when we look through microscopes and observe the structures of atoms, we see how much order and wisdom there is. So order in the world can be seen in many areas, and it connects us to the idea that there is a master of the world, that there is order, that there is someone who arranges the world. Also, in another area, I think everyone feels deep down that there is absolute justice, that there is truth, that there is morality. It's true that people try to define it only with human ability, so there are disagreements among us. Each person defines it differently, but we feel that there is an absolute truth. We search for it. We recognize that it exists, that it is real. Where does this feeling come from? In a monotheistic world, it's possible to understand where it comes from, but in a world of randomness, why? Why should such a thing exist? If the world develops only by chance, then everyone has their own morality and their own sense of justice. So belief in one God also necessarily means that there is absolute justice and absolute truth. Even if I don't always know in practice what is right or wrong, I know that there is absolute justice and truth. What is the most important meaning of this for the world? The recognition that there is one God who created the world, who governs the world, who watches over it, who observes us in this world. Not only does this give hope that one day there will be peace in the world, because there is one master of the house in this secular world, who knows who will prevail. Maybe the forces of evil, maybe everyone will destroy each other. I don't know. That there is one God who runs the world. He created it, he arranged it, he surely arranged it, so that everything would be for the best, so that everything would succeed, so that the world would reach its fulfillment. So the fact that there is one leader of the world is more than just hope for the world. It gives us confidence that one day there will be good in the world. We are certain that the world will reach its correction, just as God created the world. One day the world will be like the Garden of Eden. That's part of the foundations of our faith. That's what we're striving for, and we work to advance the world toward that. Now, we'd like to touch on another point. The word faith in Hebrew, in foreign languages, in every language it comes out differently. In Hebrew, the word faith, emunah, is built from a root of 3 letters, Aleph, Mem, and Nunamen. What does the word amen mean? Amen is a word of affirmation. When I say amen to someone, I mean to say, yes, I affirm, I agree, I also think like you. The word amen is closely connected to the word truth, emet. The word truth also has a root made up of the letters aleph, mem, and tav. There are two letters shared between these two words. And essentially, faith is bringing truth down into practical life. The letter nun, which replaces the tav, is a falling letter, a letter that descends lower. And this letter actually expresses the idea that we bring our truth down into practical life. So that's the meaning of faith, bringing the perception in its most fundamental sense refers to the way in which we interpret and understand the world around us through our senses and our minds. It is the process by which we take in information, analyze it, and form our own understanding of what is real and true. When we talk about the truth, we are referring to facts or realities that exist independently of our opinions or beliefs. Truth is what remains constant, regardless of our individual perspectives. Bringing the truth into practical life means more than simply knowing what is true. It involves actively applying that knowledge and understanding to the decisions we make, the actions we take, and the way we interact with others on a daily basis. For example, if we perceive that honesty is a fundamental truth, then integrating this truth into our practical life would mean striving to be honest in our words and actions, even when it is difficult or inconvenient. It also means being open to new information and willing to adjust our perceptions when you can choose not to subscribe to the channel. Calmly send me an email. There's my email address, or rahama@gmail.com. Go away, smoke Theo, and go away, smoke Theo.